The Committee of the Whole, for the purpose of the biennial budget, will please come back to order. And next on our agenda is the Office of Early Childhood, Mr. Robert Stabe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for being with us today.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Bob Stabe. I'm the Associate Director of Invest in Children, and I'm here for our Director, Rebecca Dorman, who made a point of telling me to express her regrets. She had made travel plans months ago, was available for last Thursday's hearing, made travel plans that she could not change. So she regrets that she can't be here, and she sends her warmest regards she's in Seattle. She's on her way back at this point.
We totally understand and acknowledge that there's been some flux and movement and that it's not always possible, so it's not a problem. Please proceed.
Here today to talk about the Office of Early Childhood and Invest in Children. The Office of Early Childhood is one of the community initiatives in the Department of Health and Human Services that implements Invest in Children. Invest in Children is the name of our premier early childhood system here in Cuyahoga County. That system was founded in 1999 around the goals of effective parents and families, safe and healthy children, and children prepared for school. Our programs now serve children prenatally up to the time that they enter kindergarten and their families and their parents. And here's a quick overview of some of the highlights for the past year of the number of families that we've touched. 1,500 high-risk families received a newborn home visit from a registered nurse. This is our partnership with the Board of Health that you heard from this morning. These are moms who give birth who are on Medicaid at the time that the baby is delivered. The visit is made within about a month of mom and the baby getting home from school. The nurse does a comprehensive health assessment of the baby and of the mom, including a depression screen for mom. It's also one of our opportunities where we can have a heart-to-heart mom about safe sleep. Where does the baby sleep, and is it sleeping safely? Our universal pre-kindergarten program, 1,600 preschoolers receiving a high-quality preschool education. That's a program that this council has been very supportive of, as has the executive. We're now operating in 35 sites throughout the entire county, including 3 public school systems. 550 children in high-risk families receiving home visiting. Bright Beginnings is the name that we give our home visiting program. It looks exactly like the state's Help Me Grow, except that it's available, accessible to more families. The state, as you'll recall, dramatically narrowed the eligibility, and we saw that there was a need that wasn't being met. During the past year, we've extended the time frame during which we serve families. We now serve them up until the time the child enters kindergarten, not to age 3, but up to the time that the child enters kindergarten. 800 children with serious social and emotional concerns receiving early childhood mental health services. This issue has come up a number of times this morning. This is our partnership with the Adams Board, and this is a program that uses 4 community-based mental health agencies to deliver direct clinical services to children who are experiencing some of these issues. Our thrust during the past year has been to give priority to children who are involved with the Department of Children and Family Services. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that, but you saw that come up in some of the other discussion about a coordinator for early childhood mental health at the Department of Children and Family Services. Lastly, 1,200 children with special needs who are receiving support and equipment. This is a program that helps child care providers and also parents who are serving children with special needs. And the services range from providing technical assistance to the provider, advice on how to help manage children's medications, to actual equipment that the providers can use with certain children with different types of disabilities. Looking ahead, a couple of key issues that we're following closely and working on in some special initiatives. Last month, the Cleveland Metropolitan School District announced that it was launching a planning process to create universal preschool for all 4-year-olds in the city of Cleveland. And that is very big news. That is very big news. Cleveland Public School District.
Was that the city of Cleveland or the county?
City of Cleveland. City of Cleveland. Public schools, as you know, must by law provide kindergarten. But there's a lot of latitude and a lot of variation from school district to school district about what's provided in the way of preschool. The city has announced this, and we are working as part of their planning effort to make that happen, and are certainly going to be forthcoming with sharing some of our successes and lessons learned from our universal pre-kindergarten program. United Way funding to our UPK sites. Some of our universal pre-kindergarten sites receive money from United Way. We know they're going through their twice every 2-year process of determining priorities. We're monitoring that situation just to be aware if funding to any of our sites might change, that we might have to be in a position to react to. Intensified scrutiny around infant mortality. You're probably aware the state released numbers last month which were as dismal as they've ever been and as discouraging as they've ever been about infant mortality in our community. And it's not just that it's too high in the state of Ohio, but it's too high among African American families in Cuyahoga County. The state has launched the they're calling it a Birth Equity Institute to address infant mortality. We're playing a role in that, but understand Invest in Children also addresses infant mortality through our Moms First program and through Baby Basics that I'm going to tell you about right now. In terms of our special initiatives, we're launching the Baby Basics program this year, which is a prenatal health promotion program. We work with pregnant moms. And there are 2 features of the program that I think you'd find interesting. One is it's a group model. We bring the moms together, they talk to each other, they form their own support group. And the program also features the Baby Basics month-by-month guide to healthy pregnancy. And this is a book that's really written with mom in mind. It's written in an accessible way, and mom is encouraged to bring this book to the doctor with her for her prenatal visits. She also brings it to the group. I mean, we want her to carry this around with her throughout the entire pregnancy. We've got a special focus on obesity during the upcoming year. Where it comes to early childhood, we're talking about prevention, and our best opportunity to do that is through the child care centers and the child care providers with whom we work. So we're looking at them around physical activity standards, we're looking at them about food preparation, we're even trying to persuade them to plant a garden out behind the preschool center so the kids can plant vegetables and then they can dig them up and eat them. Moving on, we have our NEST initiative. NEST stands for Networking for Engagement, Stability, and Transformation. This also dovetails with an issue that has emerged over the course of today's discussions. If you look at the intersection of families with young children who are homeless and families who are involved with DCFS, you find a big overlap. Now, as David has pointed out a couple times, being homeless is not sufficient for a parent to be deemed abusive or neglective, but we do see this considerable overlap, and we're embarking on a planning process, working closely with DCFS and our other community partners to address the needs of those families, probably through a supportive housing type of intervention, but we're looking at that carefully. One of our partners in that NEST program is CMHA. We're looking this year to broaden our partnership with the Housing Authority. Almost 4,000 children under the age of 6 live in CMHA estates or live in Section 8 housing. That's a lot of children, and those are children that we know are already getting our services, but we want to work more closely with CMHA to tailor the services to do an even better job of reaching those children. Lastly, I want to mention March into Kindergarten, which is our county-wide campaign to encourage families to register their children for kindergarten by March of each year. March into Kindergarten. We're promoting that effort through our child care centers, but we also had a limited number of bus signs, and there's a website as well. Some of you may know that school districts face, the problem seems to be getting worse with parents delaying the time when they register children, and some school districts are facing a real crisis on the first day of school when 30 children show up for kindergarten that they've never heard of. And now they have to find a new classroom, they have to find a teacher, they have to find an assistant teacher. It's become a real crunch in some areas. Thank you very much. That was what I was prepared to say. I'm certainly happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Questions by any members of the committee? Ms. Conwell.
That CMSD plan, universal plan, who's paying for that cost? Would that be CMSD or in your future 2014 plan?
Who's paying for the cost of the planning or for the actual
For the
preschool?
actual
I think that's partly what the planning process is going to try to address. I mean, I think they have to figure that out. I
Okay,
think they
so
have to figure that out.
that's just a new initiative. The dollars that we're putting in now are just for the planning stages, but not for the implementation of the,
There are no dollars in our budget for that process. There are additional dollars for our UPK sites, but that's a separate initiative. Those are sites throughout the county. Now, many of the details are still to be worked out, but with additional dollars available to us, we may look at that and look at that as an opportunity as part of the process with the city of Cleveland. But it's really premature for me to try to answer that.
so right now, we're not funding anything on that right now. No
That's not
dollars.
Mr. Chairman, I sit on that committee as well. From my understanding, the planning of it is partially being funded from the Gun Foundation.
Okay.
And it is just a planning process to figure out how, if at all, it can be done. So right now, there would be no money and no investment I'd perceive from the county at this point.
Okay, thank you. What has been the professional development budget in 2012, 2013? It's $300,000 this year. Do you know what it was in 2012?
The for all professional development and training, it had been, okay, give me a sec here. Altogether, it had been about $4.5 million if you look at the professional development for the centers, for the family child care homes, and for the special needs child care services. We were proposing a $300,000 cut when we were asked to develop a budget that assumed that the levy didn't pass.
Okay,
So that's what that $300,000 represents. I'm happy to stand before you to say, as you already know, that that money has been restored.
okay, but the total budget was around 4.5.
Correct.
Okay, and how often is professional development utilized for your agency or department? I guess you look at it on an annual basis?
Well, this is a number of related programs that are implemented by our partner agency, Starting Point, and they work with child care centers, they work with family child care homes, and they work with the instructors. And there's a whole range. We've discussed in the past the scholarships that the preschool teachers can get to go and get their bachelor's degree, or get their associate's degree or their bachelor's degree. The technical assistance and training. Starting Point operates a warm line that facilities can call. If they're having behavioral problems with a child, they can get someone out from Starting Point usually that day or at least the next day. So it's a training. Preschool instructors are required to maintain certification, and so they have to earn credits for continuing education, so they provide training for it. So literally, it's hundreds of centers and hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals that are touched each year. I could get you more exact numbers if that's what you are looking for.
Thank you. That's, so it's Starting Point, it's Invest in Children, it's other agencies.
Starting Point, Invest in Children, like many of the community initiatives, we're just a small office. We're just 8 people. The services that we delivered, we all deliver through contracts with different partner agencies. Mm-hmm. So newborn nurse home visit was the Board of Health. Our early childhood mental health program is the Adams Board. Starting Point is our professional development programs.
So the county's paying that 4.5?
Correct.
For the professional development? Yeah, we definitely need a list of all who benefits or what agencies or contracts benefits from that 4.5, and if you can
Sure.
let us know when they went to training this year in 2013.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Director, is the funding you have for Help Me Grow plus Bright Beginnings between the two programs, is it sufficient to meet the need for early childhood health care, or is additional money needed in this area?
There's, we're serving the kids that we can serve with the capacity that we have. There is almost always a need for money to serve additional families. Well, it's a little bit harder, not dissembling, it's a little harder to answer that question because historically the state Help Me Grow money used to run through the county and then out to community agencies. The state decided not to do it that way anymore. They're sending money directly to Guidestone, St. Martin de Porres, and achievement centers. So we're not as in the loop as we used to be to know. So, but I mean, I have to say, I'm sure that there's always more money that's needed.
Councilman Greenspan
Great, thank you.
and Jemana.
You addressed the issue of the $300,000, but I'm looking down under the new program proposals. So are you saying that the $1 million in each of in 14 and 15 for the UPK is Cleveland only?
No,
Okay,
not at all.
I misunderstood that.
Not at all. No, and I'm sorry if I conveyed that impression.
Okay. And then, and the same with the 250,000 below that? That's countywide?
That's also countywide.
Okay.
That's countywide. And if I might just embellish, that $250,000 is earmarked entirely for children who are referred from the Department of Children and Family Service, because we know these are the most vulnerable and the most likely to be traumatized, most likely to live with the scars of abuse and neglect.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Councilman Jemana, then Jones, and then Rogers.
Well, I think I have the answer, but I'm not going to be guessing. In the budget book, under early childhood mental health, children served, there was 801 in 2012, and then the estimate for 2013 was 390. So we have 390 for 2014, 2015.
Yes.
What accounted for the great drop?
Sure. Let me clarify. We switched an approach. We had 4 agencies that were under contract to provide long-term, regular therapy with families in their homes. We saw a need for what's called consultation, which is a related service where a professional psychologist works with the parent, the teacher, and the other adults in the child's life, but not necessarily directly with the child. So during that year, we had allocated some additional money for PEP to provide that consultation service. They got a whole bunch of customers, so it resulted in a spike. But what ended up happening was that PEP found that for a lot of those situations, they weren't able to resolve it as quickly, and the child then got referred to one of our partner agencies. Okay, so instead of resolving the problem, they identified a need for more long-term intervention, so another community agency. So we've readjusted the system so that we don't double count these families, but that if they do need that longer ongoing term intervention, they will wind up with one of our community agencies. So it was really just, it was a spike that resulted from changing our approach.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Jones.
Okay. One of your special initiatives, the partnership with CMHA to reach residents with services. Since I represent the Boca Public Housing and I go to the community meetings, I'm actually curious as to what I can share with them, and it appears you're preparing to share with CMHA. Maybe briefly tell me a little bit about this partnership with CMHA and the services you will deliver to them.
I would like to do that with you, Councilman. We've had one meeting with them. We spent a lot of that time talking about data, and we didn't get around to talking. So if I might beg your leave on this, we would be happy to update you once we've had some more in-depth conversations with them. We've had them At the table, Jeff Patterson, or one of his designees, has been part of our systems committee for the past year, and we actually had some substantial discussion around the homeless families with young children, about CMHA providing some housing units to use in a supportive housing model. It's all still in the talking stages at this point, so I don't know that there's anything to announce, but if you'll give us a rain check on that, we will get back to you on that.
Okay. Keep me in the loop.
I will keep you in the loop.
Councilman Rogers.
Thank you. I know that under the universal pre-K program, that there are 35 participating providers, and then there was a recommendation from the administration of an additional $1 million to support the program. Would that involve increasing the number of providers or increasing the number of students, or both?
Best answer is both. I mean, we have had about 4 hours to think about this.
Like 2 more hours than us.
What I can say to you is that would mean an additional 300 students that we would be able to serve, 300 slots.
300 slots.
On an annual basis. Exactly where they're going to be, if I can get a rain check from you on that, it'll be some combination of increasing capacity in our existing sites and identifying new sites. We have those amendments coming before your committee next week as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, one follow-up question.
Councilman Jones.
On your key issues for 2014, the intensified scrutiny of infant mortality, are there any speculations as to what the reasons are for infant mortality right now?
Oh, well, the problem is there are too many. There are too many possible causes of it. I mean, maternal nutrition is one area.
I didn't hear that word.
Mom getting a good diet, a good balanced diet, mom getting enough prenatal care, substance abuse, alcohol, tobacco. The problem is there are too many to really try to figure out whether it's just one thing or another.
Okay. I agree. I think there are too many. I've seen them, and I was just curious.
Well, you know.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very
and members
much.
of the committee.
Okay. Next, we go on to the Office of Homeless Services. Ms. Ruth Gillette. We apologize for the long time you've had to sit here.
My condolences to you. 'Cause you were longer. All right. Good afternoon, Council, County Council. I'm Ruth Gillette, Program Director of the Office of Homeless Services. Thank you for this opportunity to share information with you about the impact of levy funding in meeting basic community services and needs. So over $30 million of funding is available annually within Cuyahoga County to fund a range of strategic responses to reduce homelessness. About $20 million of these funds are contracted through the Office of Homeless Services. But as you can see, only about 20% of the funding, that $4.7 million, is provided through the Health and Human Services levy. These funds, the levy dollars, 94% of them pay for basic shelter for single adults and families in our community. This publicly funded capacity is provided at the Norma Herr Women's Center at 2100 Lakeside and through overflow shelter funding for families during the summer months. The importance of the levy funding is that it enables in our community that no one who's seeking shelter is ever turned away. In 2013, 8,320 unduplicated persons received shelter or transitional housing in our community. Over 1,600 of these persons were children. So the remaining 6% of the levy dollars, $300,000, are used to leverage with federal funds that come into our community to support rapid rehousing. Rapid rehousing assistance provides a security deposit and 2 months' rent to families to help them leave shelter as soon as possible. Rapid rehousing is a response to homelessness that's based on an understanding that most people, 80% of the people who come into shelter, are there for economic reasons, really poverty, and that they're experiencing a housing crisis, and that the most appropriate response to a housing crisis is to help someone get housing. And so rapid rehousing assistance is really a best practice response to reduce and end homelessness in our community. The trends are that, generally speaking, homelessness is a lagging indicator of the stability or decline of the entire economy. There's been a significant increase in the number of families that have been seeking shelter, and we expect that that trend will continue without policy changes at the federal level that would encourage a full employment economy and the development of affordable housing. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions to the director, Ms. Conwell.
Through the chair to the director, there was funding that was restored for the $100,000 for the drug and alcohol, but there was also funding for the North Point Transitional Housing Program.
Yes.
But there is a focus on transitioning the transitional housing to permanent housing, which was put in the budget book. You know this better than me. I don't know. Is that a better system, doing it that way, than us putting in money? I've been waiting all day to ask you that. I mean, I don't know.
To Councilwoman Conwell, through the chair, yes, the plan that we're working on is to change that facility from transitional housing to permanent supportive housing. Those conversations have started with the city and the county and the service provider, Frontline Service, and there's a nonprofit housing organization that's interested or is considering becoming involved as the they'd be the developer, if you will, because there'll be renovation needed. But today is November 2013. I'm not sure. I can't say that this transition is going to take place within a year, within 18 months, within 24 months. I mean, it's something that we want to work towards. The other thing, and so the short answer is yes, we would like to transition this facility to permanent supportive.
Is this a different, because you get better return if HUD pays for it or the federal government pays for it?
To the chair and Councilwoman Conwell, the funding would shift, the operating dollars, we would be able to shift possibly, through a partnership with CMHA. It could be a site-based, project-based facility. We might be able to have other resources within the continuum that would help with leasing dollars, which would shift the levy dollars from a transitional use in in my heart of hearts, what we'd like to do and what we're talking about doing is then reapplying those dollars possibly into the rapid rehousing usage, which would be a permanent use. I mean, it would be a way to get people out of shelter.
And do you have a number, and you don't have to give it to us now, you could send it, of just the estimate of the homeless individuals that don't have housing for 2013? Or I don't know if they're on a waiting list for housing or...
For permanent housing,
Yeah.
you mean? Well, presumably everyone in shelter needs housing. So
Right.
if that were, out of the 8,300 individuals, about 500 of those are family households, so the balance are single individuals. Of those people, more than 50% have moved on into housing or, back with family or, so the system is constantly sheltering and moving people on, but more people come in. I mean, everybody needs housing, right, in our community, and everybody needs affordable housing. So,
And there's not enough affordable housing.
no,
Is there? Yeah,
no.
okay.
And the homeless system is not the answer,
Right.
to being able to supply affordable housing.
Thank you.
Councilman Rogers.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I see the recommended budget for 2014 remains constant or with some minor reduction. But then when I look on to 2015, I see a drop down to $4 million in total. And you just indicated that you expect the needs to be increasing, at least in the near term. And I'm just wondering how do we arrive at that $4 million in 15?
Through the chair to Councilman Rogers, I believe that on this sheet, the funding was restored. Is that right, David?
To the councilman, through the chair, that is correct. That's the funding that was for North Point. So that's the $1.2 million for that facility.
To the chair to
1.3.
Councilman
Got it.
Rogers. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I appreciate very much that the funding to continue overflow services for families has been maintained. That is a significant benefit to managing the increased demand for family shelter. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Councilman Germana.
I'm sorry if I missed this, but I don't understand what unduplicated persons means.
To the chair, to Councilman Germana. So if I told you that there were 230,000 nights of shelter provided, you would say, but how many people is that? And so 8,300 is the total number of persons who utilize the shelter throughout the year. So that means maybe some stayed one night, maybe some stayed all year, but we only count them once to show the total number of individual people that were actually accessed a shelter bed at some point. Does that, I don't know if that.
Still don't understand it.
So when you say that that there were 4,037 unduplicated persons and 6,729 Well, then that suggests that there were 2,700 or so that came in at two different occasions. They came in at one point and then.
I'm sorry, okay, to the chair, to Councilor, you're looking at this slide? Oh, okay. Those are just the numbers of the people that were actually served by the levy, okay? So, because those are the numbers of the people who stayed at 2100 Lakeside and at the women's shelter. So,
Okay.
if that,
So unduplicated, meaning if they stayed more than one night. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Got it now.
Anything else? Okay,
thank you.
thank you very much. And winning the Budget Hearing Endurance Award is the Office of Reentry.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Rick Winter from the Office of Health and Human Services as well. Trevor gets us set up. I wanted to introduce Mary Kelly, who is subbing today for Luis Vasquez. I think you all know the Director Vasquez has been out for a couple months having knee replacement surgery. So he is back, fortunately, part-time, but he's not back full-time. So Ms. Kelly and I have worked together to do oversight of the office for the last couple of months. She's a terrific professional. She's going to talk about the programmatic experience for this year and their challenges for next year, and then we'd be happy to answer any budget questions. I might just say before Ruth Gillette leaves the room, you may recall that during your transition meetings, Ruth started one of your meetings by singing a song. I don't know if you all remember that, but she asked me yesterday, she has some lyrics to the tune of Maria, I believe, from West Side Story, that talks about the sequestration. So we can arrange on the issue of the sequester. So we can arrange, not this afternoon, but at some other time, if you'd like a concert or a further concert or recital by Ruth Gillette, we can arrange that. But with no further ado, I introduce Mary Kelly, who won't be singing, I don't think. Right.
Thank you, and I think that actually goes without saying. So good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and the council. I will start out just by briefly going through our 2013 selected accomplishments. We are very happy to be awarded for the third year in a row federal funding through the Second Chance Act. We were also last month asked to participate in a roundtable. Senator Portman, who is one of the co-sponsors of that act, came to town and met with us and a number of community partners. So we're happy to report that he actually this week is now reintroducing a bill for reauthorization of the Second Chance Act with Senator Leahy. So we were happy to provide our experiences to him. We fully implemented 3 social enterprise programs in partnership with the Cleveland Foundation. And so the whole program started in 2012, but in 2013 saw all 3 of the businesses fully open and operational, and then they started their reentry jobs training and placement programs as well. What is significant about that, and what is causes a little bit of confusion sometimes for people, is what we tried to do in partnership with the foundation was start a new enterprise, a social enterprise. And what social enterprises are nonprofit missions, but the vehicle through which they're funded and sustained is using traditional business principles. So this is a little bit different than some of the traditional job programs that have been started in the county. It's unique, at least to some extent, and certainly unique to the Office of Reentry. So from March 1st, 2012, when all of them started, 3 new businesses have been implemented. The first one's the Central Kitchen, and that's located at Lutheran Metropolitan Ministries at their headquarters on Superior Avenue. They are operating now a Central Kitchen, which provides meals to their 5 different homeless shelters that they serve, and they've also opened up a cafe that is open to the public on site and is doing quite well. They're also starting a catering business out of that. Expert Reclaim is operated by the nonprofit Career Development and Placement Services, Strategies. Expert Reclaim works with the County Land Bank, and they have a number of initiatives or businesses that stem from that. Every trainee gets OSHA certified, and then there are training tracks whereby they either do home deconstruction and reconstruction, clean out, vacant property management, and rehab of homes. So certainly, in the interest of trying to be brief today, I think that the social enterprise program could probably have a presentation just on its own. So if there's any information that you'd like that gets really specific about that, I'm sure that we can provide that to you at a later time. And then Signature Style Lounge opened up for full operation in May of this year, and that's located in South Euclid. I believe that that is Councilwoman Simon's district, at the corner of Mayfield and Green. So that's the 3 new businesses there. 25 people have been placed in jobs, and 86 are enrolled as current and immediate members in the next class. The numbers look a little bit smallish, so I wanted to let you know that the reason for that is because they had to start the businesses and get those established and sustainable, and then start their jobs program. We've expanded North Star, North Star is pretty much, I think a lot of people have visited North Star. That's pretty much the flagship program, and certainly the one that takes the most significant amount of the Office of Reentry's dollars. We expanded their services to add Family Matters, which is a substance abuse program for family members, and then also Reentry Reconnection, which is 4 different programs that families can attend and work with there to learn how to, if the reentrant has a substance abuse problem, how to treat the family as well. And research shows that the more family involvement that a reentrant has before they leave prison and also into the community helps them reenter the community much more successfully, and does show an impact on lowering recidivism rates. We've increased collaboration with ODRC. ODRC has a new-ish director. I think he's been their director, Gary Moore, for 3 years, and his mission statement for the whole ODRC is 2 words, and it's reduce recidivism. So he implemented a 3-tier prison system whereby instead of just being housed either geographically or in maximum, minimum, or those security level prisons, he's got a 3-tier system where while the inmate is incarcerated, that person can graduate up the levels to have more privileges, less restrictions based on their prison behavior. And that leads all the way up to reintegration centers, which are level 1s. Reintegration centers are for inmates who have at least 6 years or less of a sentence and will be beginning the transition into the community from there. We're fortunate in Cuyahoga County that 2 of their whole reintegration prisons, Grafton and what used to be called Northeast Pre-Release out on East 30th Street, are in proximity to us. So in increasing collaboration, we thought that that was a really good way to start to in-reach more and get the community involved in the inmates planning for release before they're even released, which again, research shows that a robust in-reach into the prisons to get people prepared to reintegrate to the community successfully works a lot better than they're just released with some plastic shoes and $50 and a bus ticket, and there you go. So that hasn't worked very well. We're also working strategically to develop a reentry transition model that is based on some work that's come out of the National Institute of Corrections. And 8 states implemented a prison to community transition model that has shown some success. And that's just building on the notion that reentry really does start before the person is released. And there are a number of interventions that the community and community partners and families can do to work on criminogenic needs, work on thinking errors before the person's released, and get them ready to be successful in the community. Service highlights, I just selected some highlights of services from North Star. North Star Reentry Resource Center is a one-stop shop. It's located on East 55th Street and operated by Oriana House. The notion for that was, we know as the Office of Reentry, there is a lot of need in the community and resources are very limited. Cuyahoga County, luckily, has a pretty nice infrastructure of health and human services already that we've shown that the community believes in through the passage of the recent levy. So it's a matter of linking reentrants to services that already are in the community and helping them navigate. People who've had a prison experience, a lot of them are traumatized. They are trauma informed. They've got trauma in their background. They have not had to use an alarm clock, get to a job. They've become institutionalized. So what we found through the Reentry Resource Center is a lot of times it seems pretty simple that, okay, well, you just get on the bus and you go look for a job. For people who've had a prison experience, it's really not that easy. So they employ transition specialists who, depending on the person who walks in, depending on their need and level of savvy and being able to navigate different health and human services systems, or even just the bus system, we found that having a consolidated reentry resource center that's focused only on reentrants is the way to go. So total service contacts for the year were 6,990. That is duplicated, meaning that we counted the number of times that a person receives services from a transition specialist. So this could be one person going in multiple times. Another good indicator, though, is 5,907 clients use their computer lab that is free. They have life skills classes that are associated with the computer lab. And what we find is the majority of people are using the computer lab in their job search. So that's a pretty good indicator of the need and the interest in people who are seeking her services at the center in finding jobs and becoming sustainable, self-sufficient, such that they can remain in the community. 1,471 people became members. What membership means is that it's open, it's free, it's open to anyone, but it means that the reentrant is now committed to utilizing the services and trying to stick to their reentry plan, as opposed to just kind of walking in and then walking out. We also have started, for the purposes of research, a cohort called Enhanced Membership, and those are people who are enrolled either in the NET program or in the Thinking for a Change program, and they are taking a step further and getting really intense services. What I will be distributing, but this is a draft from Oriana House, they've got a recidivism report and a report on North Star and looking at that one cohort that they watched, members versus enhanced members. So as soon as this is finalized by them, we'll be distributing that, and there's a lot of interesting information here. So not to belabor that. Also, just to give you a really good snapshot of what the community needs in terms of reentry services, number one, employment. That is a need. Many reentrants have collateral sanctions. They have limits placed on them in terms of what kinds of jobs they can get. There's also just a stigma against people with a felony record, which is unfortunate. So as a community, you know, I think that advocacy can go a long way in getting, you know, maybe some business leaders to be champions for them and say that, you know, they're worth taking a second chance on. State IDs and birth certificates. As a category, those two requests combined they surpass employment as the need, and then, of course, housing. So those are the top requests of what people want, and it's really no surprise there. Our 2014 priorities, we are going to continue on implementing a strategic plan and a transition model, focusing a little bit more robustly now that we can get into the prisons through the three-tier plan and the reintegration centers. We want to capitalize on that and work more collaboratively with the ODRC. So we're going to be trying to get community members and just focusing on that time period of 90 days before release, while they're transitioning into the community, and then 90 days after release. Research also shows that for the first year, that's really kind of a critical time period. It's kind of a make or break time period for whether or not a reentry person's going to make it in the community or not. So we thought that with limited resources, focusing right in on that transition model and working closely with the reintegration prisons first, and then branching out is a focus for our office. Also, we're going to implement something called the Reentry Redirection Initiative for the local incarceration program at the county jail. Most of the reentrants from Cuyahoga County who are prisoners come from Ohio state prisons. However, according to the booking numbers at the jail, 18,000 people, or there are 18,000 bookings per year at the jail. And Mr. Merriman is well-versed in jail stats, so if I'm not speaking that right, you can let me know. But so what we wanted to do was, we realized that, first of all, if we can reduce recidivism and stays at county jail, that will reap a direct savings right for the county. And what this is going to do is, there is a specific cohort of inmates at the jail who are there in something called the Local Integration Program. That is a prison diversion program that is available to our municipal judges, that rather than sending somebody to prison to get that first prison number, which is a predicator and a risk factor for future incarcerations that can start you down the path of the cycle and the recidivism, rather than sending somebody to prison, these people can be housed at the county jail to serve a sentence of 6 months or less at the jail. The issue is, though, the state funds that program, but only to the extent of room and board. So the prisoners are there in this program, but there really is very limited programming available to them. What we'd like to do is implement case management, cognitive behavioral, move them up the waiting list to get them into Project Learn more quickly, and then have interventions and a case manager that can follow them out into the community to make sure that they are fulfilling their reentry plan and trying to get connected to the services in the community from the jail. And then also, the thing that we've been finding is reentry is not a new concept, but government's focus and research focus on it is kind of fragmented and limited. Throughout the nation, we find that different states, different jurisdictions calculate recidivism differently. The timeframes are different. Some count arrests and reconvictions in their numbers. Ohio says that recidivism means a recommitment to prison. So there's a variety of information, but what we're finding is there's not a lot of really good information that can home in on Cuyahoga County and tell us who is the reentry population right now in the county, what services are they accessing, and how do they fare once they access them. We know it in a general way, and there's some research from ODRC kind of in a snapshot way, but we'd like to do a little bit better job in working with service providers and boiling it down and having a much better knowledge of who's living in the community right now. Pretty much that's it, and I'm ready for questions, and of course, Director Warner's here too.
Okay, we got Councilman Rogers first that I saw this time, and then Conwell.
Great, thank you. I've heard some criticisms regarding the social enterprise programs and the amount of money that's been spent, particularly toward the startup, in comparison to the number of people that are actually being served. And I'm wondering if there are projections on when that, when those costs will kind of justify out, or over time, of when do you think the program can be said that it's successful?
That's a good question to the councilman through the chair. Well, we recognize that, but what our answer in the first part would be, remember, this is not a traditional jobs program. We were creating businesses that would start up and then be sustainable into perpetuity. So, yes, there was an initial outlay of money. So let's say that the first cohort of jobs cost $20,000 per job. However, social enterprises work in that once the business becomes self-sustainable through profits and through the revenue generated by operating the business, the social mission of hiring reentrants continues on. So in the first year, you really could have, you know, a higher than what you would like to see cost per job. If, however, the businesses stay sustainable and they continue on with the mission, so the first year they could hire 100 people. But then the second year, they could hire another 100 people, but now it's being paid for by the revenue generated by that business. There is no impact on the 2014 budget at all. We are finished funding the social enterprises. However, they are going to sustain themselves and continue on and to continue to train and hire reentry people on into perpetuity. I don't have projections right now because the whole program started on March 1st, 2012. A lot of the businesses, like the salon, got really up and running to the point where they were ready to serve clients, both hair clients and, reentry clients. That got started in around June. So we're going to be watching that very closely and absolutely reporting back to you all. And I know that Councilman Jones particularly has an interest in that. So to project it out, I wouldn't want to just make an estimate out of nowhere, but we could get you more information on that and build out some projections from there, certainly.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, I know that in the past, the Office of Reentry did a lot of subcontracting to groups like Towards Employment, where they were providing services on kind of the soft skills and things you need to do. And I didn't see any of that reflected in this presentation now. Are we still doing those types of contracts, or are we no longer?
Oh, no, yes, we are. Just in the interest of time, I homed in on the big ticket, the North Star, the biggest client amount, I guess, initiative. We did kind of subsume Towards Employment this year into our Second Chance program. So they provided in-kind services to us for a cohort of 150 clients who were served through the Second Chance Act. So they received monies, but they were through the act, but they were providing the services in kind. So we did not fund them necessarily to the extent that we did in the past. However, in 2014, in combination with our workforce development, we are putting out an RFP that's out right now, and we're going to be continuing on with the Towards Employment model. Also, there's the NET program at North Star, which served 400 clients, and that was Towards Employment working directly at North Star. So what we did was take that program, move it into North Star, and then also have Towards Employment at their headquarters, serving this cohort of Second Chance Act people. And now we thought it would be a good idea to work collaboratively with workforce development and leverage some dollars there. So that RFP provides that same soft skills and then job search programming, and that's going to be funded in 2014 in collaboration with workforce development.
Could I get a copy of the RFP?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Conwell.
Through the chair, I believe, Ms. Kelly, the reentry redirection, and I just wanted to be clear on that. Individual in the reentry redirection, they don't have a book, they don't get booked? That's not a booking? You said that they get these individuals and then they go to the county jail, but they're not treated?
To the councilwoman through the chair. No, they are booked into the jail. What is happening is they are not sent to prison to serve their sentence because they're sentences that are less than 6 months. So rather than put them into the prison, they are actually sentenced to serve their sentence at the jail. So they're booked in and they're a jail inmate, but they are in this specific program called the Local Incarceration Project because that's a specific diversion program. It's like rather than living in a prison, you are living at the jail, but you are still serving your felony sentence. It's a diversionary.
Yeah, because you kind of stated that they're not, it kind of stops them from the road to recidivism.
Well,
So-
it does only in the in terms of, I guess, what I would call lethality, in that they've asked inmates, and I believe, I don't know if this is anecdotal from Ken Kochevar, the administrator of the jail, but inmates just feel safer at the jail. And also, the theory behind it was keeping people in the community and closer to their family has a therapeutic and a recidivism reducing effect as well. So that's the rationale behind that.
I could go further with that, but I'm going to leave that one alone.
Okay.
Could you send us what your key performance measures are?
Yes.
They were not listed in.
Yes, I saw that. Yes, we
in
can.
the budget book. And last biennial budget, your agency was funded over $4 million. What did this dollar amount leverage? Because I've had conversations with Director before he went out for a surgery, so you actually leveraged some dollars from that.
Yes, we did. I believe I've got that. You know what? I've got a document here prepared by Luis and our staff attorney, Fred Bolleton. He does not have it broken down just into the last biennium, but I've got a figure here. Total funding leverage since 2009, $4.3 million. It looks like $4,313,482. And he's got a breakdown of all the different variety. I didn't know if you wanted to get into that now, but we could send you this document perhaps. Okay.
Thank you, that would be appreciated. And I didn't hear any negativity about the social enterprise program, so my question would be, are you waiting to see how the performance on these are, or were there any plans for more social enterprise programs in 2014, 2015?
To the councilwoman through the chair. We are waiting to see the effects of, if the businesses stay sustainable. And all indications are that this is going very well. But because it is new and it is a social enterprise program, we did not want to just go ahead and redo it again in 1 year. We'd like to get some data for a good year of performance now that they've opened, to see how it's going and to see if that cost per job does drop, as we anticipate it will. I mean, this is certainly not a criticism at all of the entities. We think that they've done a great job, but in the interest of being prudent and spending public money wisely, we did not want to rush into that right in 2014.
Are these the same type of, in moving forward and always planning for the future? I think discussions are probably going on now if we should move forward with the social enterprises programs. Would it be in the same arena, or is there some thought to expand in different arenas, or are we kind of segmented into just hair salons and cooking?
Oh, no. To the councilwoman through the chair. No, that would be an RFP process, of course, that we would put out. But the reason why those three were selected is because cosmetology has a very low barrier to entry for people. And if you can build up a good cosmetology business, you can make anywhere from about $40,000 to $50,000 a year if you really work it. So it's a low barrier to entry, and it doesn't require necessarily a college education, and it does provide a sustainable living wage. So that's why that one was selected. Expert reclaim, getting people into the construction trades also. What we were looking for was in this area to try to create businesses where people could enter them and have them be career path businesses rather than kind of entry-level jobs. But no, I would definitely want to do an RFP for that and see what the community has to say. Also, there is a social enterprise going on right now that has not been funded by the county called Edwin's out in Shaker Square. A gentleman by the name of Brandon Krostowski has started a gourmet restaurant, based on French cooking out at Shaker Square that opened for business on November 1st. So we're also watching the success of that business and see where that goes. But it's a concept that's kind of caught on, especially in food. Thank you.
Councilman Jones.
And Mary, I'd just like to follow up on comments you already made and about any potential negativity. Maybe it'd be good to articulate it in the traditional workforce training model, how much they're spending every year to continue to provide the work training and the job placement, and the one-time cost, because you're not asking for additional money. we've gotten it for 2 years, and that's it. So it was a sizable investment when compared to the old model, appears costly. But as we watch this now self-sustained set of businesses, watch them continue year after year, churn out training and job placement, then the success becomes greater as long as these 3 operations, privately owned through the nonprofit, not privately owned, but nonprofit created companies, as they continue to succeed. So watching their success and how profitable they are will continually add to the success of our initial investment. So it's a different model, but it has been successful over these last 2 years and continuing on.
Yes, to the councilman through the chair. Also, social enterprises have been successfully implemented in places like Los Angeles. There is a social enterprise called Homeboy Enterprises. So they are around the country nationally. And what I've heard is estimates of between $7,000 and $8,000 to a low of maybe $4,000 per person is the typical amount of money spent on traditional job programs. But once that happens, there's no guarantee. Well, there's no guarantee that a person will get a job no matter what industry they've been in. But with traditional job programs, and they work, this is certainly not to slam them. We just wanted to try to do a different model where people would have an opportunity to get living wage jobs and where the program would be able to continue on being sustained through private funding, through business profitability rather than traditional public sector funding.
Do you have similar statistics for the other 2 disciplines as you share with cosmetology? The 40 to 50,000 per year for cosmetologists. Are there similar numbers for the other 2?
To the councilman through the chair, we could get you the breakdown of all of those projections for the 3 businesses. I will say that one of the expert reclaim people was able to get a job that makes like $37 an hour. So, but we do have that information. We would be happy to provide it. Okay. I just don't have it with me off the top of my head right now.
Okay. In the expert reclaim, has there been any partnership with the unions? Are these, as they gain a skill set, are they able to, electricians, I visited the house, one house where young men were working and they were working on the electrical box and they were, working on the house, those building trade skills. Any relationship with the unions,
To the councilman through the chair, I do not have that information off the top of my head. It is a question that I have asked Mr. Stevens, who is the person who's operating Expert Reclaim right now. What is the pathway into hopefully, some union apprenticeships? And I believe that he says there is a pathway, but I don't have the specifics, so I don't want to, misspeak. But that, again, that's something that we could get for you.
Okay, thank you.
And I actually have I can come back.
Continue.
The
hour is late, though.
Develop reentry transition model to strengthen focus on earlier pre-release service contacts. When I read this, I think of the fact that I chaired my church prison ministry for 7 years. We would go in and talk to the young men, and now as a county councilman, I reflect back and I said, wow, it would have been great if I had known about county services. So as I was there in those last 90 days, I could have said all those referral questions and brought with us what was necessary. Said, this is how you get housing, your state ID, your birth certificate, employment, right there, and share that with them so they could hit the ground running when they leave out, as opposed to stepping out of those gates and figure out what am I going to do next. I don't know if you heard earlier when I talked about the partnership with the church and the government as far as food. This is a perfect opportunity, I think, to do the same thing. Is that what that statement means, and how how are you following up on that?
To the councilman, through the chair, absolutely, that's exactly what we mean. Right now, we are working collaboratively with the same cohort of people who were involved with providing community input a couple of years ago when we first started the strategic plan process. We have re-engaged the co-chairs of our Greater Cleveland Reentry Strategy partnership, and we are working very much to expand to incorporate faith-based partners, and that's exactly what we mean. What we are going to do this year is put together a standard presentation. We'd like to be the model for the state. Put together a standard set of information, service linkages, written information, verbal visits to selected prisons, the top 6 where most of the Cuyahoga County people reside. So we're working on putting that together right now. We expect to have a plan for that in early 2014. Also, video conferencing is an excellent way. Our North Star Reentry Resource Center is equipped to do video conferencing, and Mike Edwards out of the Adult Parole Authority has started something called the Star Video Forum, where he provides just that sort of in-reach into the prisons. Next week, I'm going to a meeting in Columbus where Todd Ishii, who is a regional administrator for ODRC, would like to develop a reentry TV network that will go out into the prison. So we want to be at the table there to get all of the North Star information, the faith-based information. In reentry, it's not so much that there's that much of a service need, but there is. It's more about connecting people to the services that exist in the community and working with them in the place of being reentry people. Another initiative that I'd like to try, and I guess I'm going to spring this kind on Mr. Merriman, I think it's really interesting throughout the sister health and human services agencies, how many of those clients have, reentry background, and how many of the clients really might not necessarily need the county services that they do, but for the felony background and possibly the cycle of incarceration that's causing this. So I think there might be some work even to collaborate further and to coordinate further within our own health and human services agencies to see, because certainly reentry doesn't have the budget to necessarily duplicate services. But I think that if we could coordinate services and make sure that the folks who need it get to it quicker and more robustly, I don't think that's a word, but that's kind of something that I'm going to be trying to work through Mr. Vasquez and Mr. Werner and approaching Mr. Merriman about.
And Citizen Circle, that's, connect that for me. Citizen Circle is where citizens of the community, institutions, they come to our Office of Reentry and they start to kind of elaborate a little bit for me.
To the councilman, through the chair. Yeah, we've got big plans for citizen circles. It is, throughout the state, unfortunately, it was an initiative of the Adult Parole Authority, and I think that funding got cut for that. So Cuyahoga County really is the only county left standing who has a really nice citizen circle infrastructure. It's chaired by a gentleman by the name of Deacon Mike Davis and a gentleman by the name of Charles Bradford. They've got, I think, 6 circles active right now, and they're looking to expand into the west side. They go to the prisons and try to enroll people in citizen circles. So that's another piece that we would like to coordinate through our transition model, pull them into the loop and kind of like leverage that service that's already going out there and kind of maybe take with them more information and kind of get them into our, standard presentation that we'd like to develop. And our goal is to have all inmates at least get a service presentation and some linkage, start at the reintegration prisons, and then build our way out in expanding that.
I heard you mention money or potential loss of money. I said this to Director Werner just moments earlier, that we need to take a big picture look at how we deliver our services, and after the passage of this levy, it seems very simple to me to have a packet with whatever the information might be for those top referral questions. and put that into the hands of every Citizen Circle, and not even a Citizen Circle member, but all the churches who aren't even a part of Citizen Circle. I don't think there needs to be a restriction based on funding to take these packets and put it into the hands of those who are going into the prisons. And I just envision every church should have that. And there shouldn't be a money thing, it should be a printing thing. Print it up and put it into the hands, and now you're penetrating the community. It wasn't a hard thing when we were campaigning. We printed our literature and we gave it to the church because we wanted to get that money. And we were quick about it and we were effective at it. And now we got the money, and now it's hard to figure out how to get that same information into the hands of these same people that helped us get the money, who are there with the very people we want to help. So there should be a way of, again, checking these going home to stay books and everything else, and a little cellophane wrapper or whatever you want to put a ribbon on it, put it in the hands of these. Every church, any church worth their salt has a prison ministry, and they're going to some prison, and that type of information and the education that can go back and forth between the county and these churches, and we can start to have even greater impact on the lives of these people and reduce recidivism if we were to do those things. So I don't know what the funding models are and all the things that slow the process down, but that's something that we need to work on.
To the councilman through the chair. Well, we do print out the Going Home to Stay guide, but through our adult transition model that we're speaking of, that is exactly what we're talking about. So I don't believe that it's necessarily a funding issue. I think it's more of an issue of coordination, collaboration, and working really closely with our stakeholders. We've got the process of that started, and we think it's working pretty well. Now it's a matter of, getting the information into people's hands. What we do well, I think, is get the word out about North Star. It's a one-stop, physical, live, going home to stay guide, and of course, it's accessible through 211 First Call for Help. So,
Well, here would be my last lighthearted suggestion.
Okay.
Hire the H.H. Levy campaign and turn them loose, and they'll get it done.
well, to the councilman through the chair, okay. Good idea.
RFP that.
Anything else? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, my colleagues, I would congratulate all of you on completing the hearing of all of the departments and agencies. We're going to be out of here in 5 or 10 minutes. We do have a couple of housekeeping things to do. First, Director Rubino, could you come forward? The hour is late, and I had planned to ask you to present the technical changes. I'm not going to do that, and just ask my colleagues to please take a look at them. The director has assured us that they are technical in nature. But I do have one important question for you, which is that we've seen the proposed changes for HHS. We've seen the technical changes. My question is whether there's any more administration amendments. These would likely be things that are of a non-technical nature in the general fund as opposed to the human services area? Or are there not any such amendments coming forward?
None that I'm aware of, but we will double check and get back to you tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And just as a point of order, the document we gave you with our technical changes, we're going to be removing one line item. The Knox loan funding was presented as a proposed amendment, and we have that as a technical change. We'll remove that, revise it, make sure there's a date, and resend that tomorrow morning. The $46,000 for the Knox loan funding for Metro Health, it's showing up on the amendments that were presented today for HHS.
And why is it not an amendment?
We're saying it is an amendment. It shows up on our technical document, but we believe it should be on the actual proposed
Understood.
amendments, not in the technical side, even though it was, I guess, considered to be ongoing.
Sure.
But
Okay, thank you.
okay.
Just a question, Mr. Rubino, on this document. If you could put a total at the bottom, we see what the total
Sure.
net impact, and then obviously with that, you'd probably have to make the HHS levy a separate line below the title. Because obviously it's,
No, but you said you wanted a title. I can do that. That's
oh,
fine.
I'm sorry, underneath the total, that's the title.
Well, some of those aren't additions. A lot of them are. This is why I didn't do a total. A lot of them are just realignments. So I could break out the alignments from the net changes if you want. We can present it
Yeah,
that way.
Realignments from the additions and then
Yes.
totals for both, and then move.
Yes, because the bulk of it's not changes in the net amount. It's realigning either between budget account codes or realigning between expense category codes. We can do a separate version that groups by those types of changes if you like. Whatever
Okay,
works.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I would,
I know you want to leave, Mr. Rubino.
Oh, no, not at all.
The 380,000,
Yes.
was that a one-time scholarship?
Yeah, pursuant to that ordinance that was adopted this year, that was one-time dollars in 2013.
Right.
We inadvertently had it showing up in the levy side. It's general fund. So that's that amount that shows up in the departmental summary for early childhood. It's not really a reduction. It's a correction to what we had presented earlier on. There was 380 for the College Now for 2013 general fund. And the way we understand the educational assistance program is working is council is incrementally presenting new program expansion or new program pieces to that overall ordinance or approach. So as you present an ordinance to allocate additional dollars, you'll see it show up as a request to appropriate in our ongoing fiscal resolutions, or if someone presents an amendment as part of this process, it would be included that way.
Okay.
But the
And that
380 was
would be in the
2013
general
only.
fund?
I'm sorry?
And would that be in the general fund?
That's
If
the
we're
way
moving-
the program is structured, yes.
Okay.
That's something that council could decide if they want to expand types of funding
Okay.
going forward.
Thank you.
okay. I've prepared, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. I've prepared an initial draft of my suggested changes, which has been distributed. I would encourage you to look at that and study it. We had hoped to kind of do a roundtable discussion this afternoon, but the hour is late and we had a whole lot of new information come in today, so we're gonna hold off on that until the 19th. I would share that even though the schedule says we're gonna adopt a substitute and our amendments, and we're gonna get this to second reading on the 26th. I don't see any way that that's gonna happen. It's just gonna take us a little more time to process this. I still have hope that on the 19th we might do a substitute that contains the technical amendments, the restorations, and maybe a few other things that there seems to be a consensus on, but there's going to be more work to do. So is there anything that anybody else wants to say about the budget process at this time?
There is, but I'm gonna just hold it to myself.
Are you still expecting on the 15th, tomorrow to get in the HHS levy? Or you're giving us additional time to
No.
absorb this new information we were given today?
I think that on the roundtable presentation on the 19th, that will be sufficient. I would like people's suggestions at the next meeting on the 19th. If anyone has ideas prior to that and wants to start circulating them around for discussion, I think the earlier things come out and the more they're discussed, the more likely they are to make the budget, but I think the 19th will be fine. Anything else?
Chairman? So on the 19th, the expectation is that if people have amendments, they would have them ready to go then, or suggestions, or?
What they don't have to be in the specific language to submit as an amendment, because we won't even, the best case scenario is that we would pass a substitute on the 19th. What I want to do on the 19th is to get all the ideas and concepts out on the table so that we know, we kind of know the universe of what things we're considering. And as far as getting them into the specific language to be incorporated as an amendment, that could be a little bit later.
So I don't think my schedule is going to permit me to be here on the 19th. Would you want something similar to what you've put forward?
Yes, that would be great.
Thanks.
1 o'clock. And at that meeting, we're first going to hear about the MMPI succession agreement and the governance plan for the convention center. So my guess is that we're not going to get to the budget till 3 o'clock or something like that. So that's going to be a challenging afternoon. 1 to 5. It's scheduled for 1 to 5. Anything else on the budget? Is there any miscellaneous business? Has anybody signed in for public comment?
Mr. Chairman, the young lady who did sign in did not stay, so no.
Hopefully, she may come back on the 19th. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? They'd have to be crazy.